is dead. Okay, we don't need to hit the beat. Man, it's good. It's good to be here. It's good to be on. Now let's put on our chillax, our relaxing music. Oh man. All right. How is everyone doing? How is everyone doing? I hope everyone's doing well. I found that track on a X post. I've been doing a lot of looking at X posts here. And I'm going to do one more thing off screen to show you guys where it came from. So, a bunch of Iranians are. Oh, am I out of frame right now? I gotta. Nope, no, I'm not out of frame. Everything's cool. Everything's cool. So a bunch of Iranians are just dancing to it in private, right? So people are having parties in Tehran to this.
Ayatollah Khamenei, he's dead.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's go ahead and continue. I think this was a post. Yeah, this is the actual YouTube video. And then, oh, I accidentally clicked on the same thing twice. Oh, it looks like it's just a bad link. Yeah, for some reason it actually links to the wrong thing. Okay, let's get into the latest bit of information. Oh, actually, look at that. Euro dollar gapped a bit lower. So far, the trade's been going so far so good. This trade is still on, so we can extend it into the next day here. It didn't do as well as all the other US dollar pairs. If you look at, for example, New Zealand dollar, this thing has just moved 50 pips. It's done double what euro dollar did. And we moved right to the expectation a lot sooner. So we moved right to the price that was expected with the timestamp. But we didn't get there when we expected. We got there earlier than expected, which is frankly preferable. You know, when you're setting an expectation, the sooner you generally get there, a lot of the time, the better. A lot of the time, the better. All right. Let's start this off with Besant confirming, yes, the United States will pay for insurance through the Strait of Hormuz.
Announcement that DFC will provide the insurance for both the crude carriers and the cargo ships operating in and around the Gulf over the weekend. Lloyd's of London nullified the insurance, so U.S. government is going to step in, and when it is appropriate and should it be needed, the U.S. Navy will provide safe passage through the straits for the oil tankers.
So let's go over the current situation since these developments. Let's go ahead and go to this next post. Okay, Lloyd's of London was the gold standard for maritime insurance policies until just a day or two ago when they started canceling policies or jacking them up 3 to 5 times. Other insurers followed. That collapsed commercial shipping traffic through Hormuz, which choked oil shipments out of the Middle East. And we're going to be going into more depth on this as we go through these posts. Trump doing this, offering the insurance, means the DFC has the chance to displace Lloyd's as the big dog in this game. I assume he means person who has the most insurance policies, or at least the largest policies in total. When they have been the lock-in player for many years, talking about Lloyd's. It also frees up all the oil that was getting trapped there in Iran, heading off shortages and keeping the energy market alive. Okay. It also potentially means billions of dollars. We know Trump likes saying that, billions and billions and billions and billions, and there's a song about that, billions and billions and billions. It also potentially means billions of dollars in insurance premiums at wartime rates going to America instead of the UK. And those rates are still going to be cheaper than what shippers were getting. So it might be a win-win scenario here. Going on to the next bit. This is actually a Sky News segment.
Heart of global maritime insurance. This is Lloyd's of London, the heart of global maritime insurance, as it has been since 1689, when the first brokerage was established in a coffee shop close to this site. This is the original rostrum, where a caller would shout information to brokers, and that is the Lutein Bell. It comes from a ship called the Lutein that sank, carrying a cargo of gold bullion. Lloyd's paid out for the loss and established its reputation. What's worrying brokers here today isn't gold, it's oil and gas, specifically the oil and gas on tankers in the Persian Gulf, currently sat waiting to know what to do either side of the Straits of Hormuz. They've been sitting there since the Iranian military.
Yeah, all those little red dots.
There's another factor, not just their security, their insurance status. The Lloyd's market has something called a joint war committee, which assesses what it calls war-related perils for shipping, and they have expanded the area of what they consider to be high risk in the last few days to include Kuwait, Qatar, a wider area of the Gulf. And that simply means the insurance those ships set out with may no longer apply. So they insist they are insured, but they're having to reassess the risk. Reinsurance will come in due course, and then owners can decide whether to move their ships. For now, they are static, and traffic through the Straits of Hormuz has collapsed. What's going up is the cost, not just of shipping, but almost certainly the cost of insuring these vessels. Premiums will rise. There is an offer from Donald Trump made via social media.
We just read that.
An American financial institution will offer insurance, but here they don't know what that means.
The detail of such a scheme hasn't been given to anyone so far as we know, and it will take time to work it out. And the appetite is unknown. Essentially, our market's still writing risks, and there isn't a perception here that there's a need for intervention at this time.
Trump has also promised naval vessels to provide an escort for tankers, even if that could mean
I did like
oil
this
bound
upcoming
for
caveat.
China being taken there by US military vessels. Some think that might reduce the risk. Others point out it could push up the premium because a naval vessel with a US flag could be a target.
There will be those who think it might increase the target. If you're a tanker owner, you'd be, on the one hand, delighted that it's been offered, on the other hand, trying to understand whether it does increase the risk or not, and do you want to accept it?
This place once paid out £1 million to the owners of the Titanic within 30 days. Now, mercifully, no vessels have been lost since this war began. We can be pretty certain that prices of oil, of gas, of premiums paid by those shipping them, and ultimately to consumers, they're going up.
Yep. That was a very good segment, I thought. I thought it was a very good segment by Sky News. Especially having the little interview bit there at Lloyd's. And then this is another thing to bring up on, hey, this is really impacting markets. This is really bad. Cost of gas-fired power in the EU has increased by 51% since the latest escalation of the Middle East conflict. And yeah, fuel costs are going up to $137 per megawatt hour, up from about an average, it seems, of about, it was 91 euros per megawatt hour the day before, and it averaged about 100. Is around plus or minus $10, around 100. Now it's way above that now. Now, as far as natural gas goes, Qatar still has their stuff shut down, and they are continuing to iterate and report and announce, hey, we are shutting stuff down. Qatar will fully shut down gas liquefaction on Wednesday, which is pretty sure that's today, and won't be able to return to normal production and export levels of super chilled gas for at least a month. So that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt, especially Europe. They're gonna have elevated gas prices for quite a bit. Now, the other thing is Qatar declared force majeure, essentially saying that all the contracts that they currently have extraneous situations from outside the contract that impact their ability to fulfill the contract. So these force majeure clauses are essentially there to say we're not liable due to these effects from the rest of the world impacting our ability to actually fulfill on these deals. So now it's a big spot market. Instead of all these futures contracts getting fulfilled, everyone's now having to compete at spot. So, further to the announcement by Qatar Energy to stop production of liquefied natural gas and associated products, Qatar Energy has declared force majeure to its affected buyers. Qatar Energy values its relationship with all of its stakeholders and will continue to communicate the latest available information. Now, there are other companies that are also being impacted. Maersk, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, they're saying we are temporarily suspending cargo bookings acceptance in and out of the UAE, Oman, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Iran, and Saudi Arabia until further notice. So all those countries are not going to be getting any Maersk line shipments. They're not. Nope. There also was a comment today from Putin on European gas specifically. And there's a whole video here, but it's not translated. This is a translation. Putin has floated the possibility of ending Russian gas supplies to the European Union immediately, which would exacerbate the costs that Europeans are currently feeling after the Strait of Hormuz has been closed by the Iranians. Rather than waiting until 2027 when Brussels plans to phase out Russian gas. So this is Putin trying to kind of twist the economic knife into Europe at the moment. Oh, you're having a hard time getting oil right now? Well, maybe if I put this extra pressure on you, it'll be a little bit easier for me to do what I want as far as war goes with Ukraine. Or maybe I can at least calm things down on the Ukraine side as far as funding for their weapons. Frankly, who really knows exactly what the end goal is other than let's go ahead and make sure we can reduce the amount of money being sent to Ukraine. And then whatever consequential effects come from that would be the goal Putin's trying to get here from doing this. So Putin, this guy's translation, Brian McDonald, as for gas, the surge in prices on the European market isn't even directly connected to any restrictions on supplies right now. The main suppliers haven't reduced their volumes. Who are the main suppliers today? Algeria, the United States, Norway, and Russia to some extent. None of them have cut deliveries to the EU. But prices have already jumped to around $700. Why? Because of the overall situation on global markets including oil markets, and in this case, the gas market as well. It's the general global situation. Talking mostly about Iran. There are now buyers willing to pay more for natural gas, particularly because of what's happening in the Middle East, disruptions to shipping routes, and so on. When premium buyers appear who are ready to pay higher prices, then some traditional suppliers to the EU market, I'm sure of it, including American companies, will naturally go where they can get more. That's completely normal. There's nothing political about it. It's just business, and that much is true. So once again, this is the result of mistakes made by the EU over years, says Putin. That brings me to something I've been talking about. As was mentioned earlier, they're, referring to the EU, planning to introduce new restrictions on Russian gas supplies in about a month. The deadline is the 24th, and from the 25th, new limits will come into force. And then in 2027, they plan even further restrictions, up to a complete ban. At the same time, other markets are opening up. So maybe it would make more sense for us to stop supplying gas to the EU ourselves, move to those other markets, and establish ourselves there, says Putin. Again, I want to stress there's no political motive here. They're very much as that's outright not true. But if they're going to close the market to us in a month or two anyway, maybe it's better to leave now and focus on countries that are reliable partners. That said, this isn't a decision. I'm just thinking out loud. I'll ask the government to look into it together with our companies. Well, a big part of why this probably wouldn't be able to work is because Russia has been sanctioned incredibly heavily already. I mean, who are they going to sell to? They'll be in the same situation that Iran was in, especially because all these sanctions are being put on the Russians in order to try and get them to come to the table more promptly to create a ceasefire or a peace negotiation with Ukraine and end the war. So if they go out of their way to try and find new markets, the US and the rest of their allies are just going to follow the Russians to wherever they're selling and tell them, hey, we are going to put sanctions on you if you take in that natural gas, if you take in that Russian oil. Look at what recently happened with India. India just agreed after all those massive tariffs were put onto India to stop accepting Russian oil. Now that the IEEPA tariffs are off of mostly India and China, those were the two countries most impacted by the IEEPA tariffs. Now that those tariffs are off, maybe there's less pressure on them to actually begin accepting oil and gas from Russia again. It'll be kind of an interesting case study to see if that actually follows through. Look at my man Joe rocking with these live streams. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for hopping on and saying hi. Oh, don't want to moving some stuff around on another screen here. Okay, so that's what Putin is up to, right? And we have to watch what Putin is up to because the Russia-Ukraine war will move oil, nat gas, the euro, the zloty in Poland. It can move a lot of stuff. The Swiss franc, oh my god, the Swiss franc will go through the roof if things escalate again. So it's really important to watch what's going on and what Putin is saying and to stay up to date and follow those things. This is a post that's doing a little bit of a summary on what oil markets currently look like. Oil shortage nearest capacity as Hormuz remains blocked. Oil storage, rather, nearest capacity. Middle Eastern oil producers are running out of storage as the Iran conflict halts shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. All those big inland oil tankers cannot accept any more oil from the pumps and from the refineries if they're full. And at some point, they either have to start dumping oil like Canada dumps all their milk, or they're gonna see, instead of white gold in Canada, you have black gold. I mean, Canada does a lot of oil related stuff too, but they have some pretty bad policies when it comes down to milk, dumping milk. A lot of milk. Oh, it's so bad. But the Iranians might be in a similar situation where they might need to dump oil that they literally can't store. It's really critical to get ships through to get this oil out of Iran. So then, and also from other producers, it's not just Iran. Because when we saw from that Sky News bit right here, all this stuff is closed. All this, all around Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman, Yemen, all of the ports that export oil and natural gas around this area now have to pay a bunch more insurance, or are being told to stay away. So there's a lot of companies that cannot operate at these wartime costs for insurance. And so they're just not doing anything. So all of these ports are just loading up and trying to store as much of the oil as possible and as much of the natural gas as possible. And then eventually it just reaches a point where they can't store it anymore and they have to off-gas it. At least for the nat gas side of things. So Iraq has already cut production. Saudi Arabia and the UAE may follow in the following weeks. And right, UAE is right there. Saudi Arabia is right there. You can't really get through to the Red Sea because you have to go through an area that's declared right now by Lloyd's of London to be an ongoing war zone. And so they won't insure you to even just pass through there, even though it's over across from Saudi Arabia. They're afraid of their ships getting hit. Oil futures hit a 19-month high above $85 a barrel. We can actually pull up the chart and look at crude oil futures. And I think they're looking at something else, probably, because this is crude oil. Crude oil has not gone that high. And we seem to be establishing a bit of a range here. We have a high, and then by full screen real quick. Oh man, you can see how big of a deal that gap was. Also, we don't need this drawing here anymore. We don't need this drawing here anymore. And we can hide these to make it a little bit cleaner. Yeah, so there's your high. There's a higher low. There's a lower high. There's another higher low. So we're establishing a bit of a range in the upper 70s here. And my expectation is we are going to go higher as far as oil prices go in the meantime, because I expect all of these pressures to actually move crude oil into the low 80s proper. Yeah, this became a much bigger deal. Insurance companies rubbing their hands together. Dude, they're making a hell of a lot of money right now. What was it that they're increasing? Yeah, they're jacking up policies 3 to 5 times, and if you can't pay that, then good fucking luck. You get no insurance. That's kind of insane. So combined Gulf storage has 100 million barrels left, but effective capacity is lower due to operational limits and tank locations. Key terminals in Saudi Arabia are rapidly filling. JP Morgan warns some producers could hit quote-unquote tank tops in just over 3 weeks unless alternative export routes are used. So Mideast oil producers against the clock. Hormuz halt may exhaust oil and fuel shortage in weeks or days. So this is a chart showing the number of days from start of conflict until shut-in. And I believe what they're referring to here by shut-in is the number of days it will take to reach. And let me just check. Yeah, everything's going fine. So 6 days for Iraq till shit hits the fan for them. 14 days for Kuwait, 16 days for the UAE with some excluding rerouting. They get 3 extra days if there's some reroute. The Saudis look like they're in the best position. Without rerouting, they got 36 days before shit hits the fan for them. And if they're able to kind of reroute things and maybe modify a couple of things, they can get up to 2 months. So it's mostly Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Iraq that are going to be the hardest hit here. So we got a timer of about 2 weeks before shit really hits the fan as far as oil goes and storage goes for these countries. So within 2 weeks, the ships need to go through. The ships need to flow. The oil needs to flow. We're back to the spices analogy with Arrakis and Dune again. So the sooner ships can get through, the better. The better. But it has to be, the general time frame we're working with now is within the next 2 weeks before, like, we're talking the chart on the left here, going into potentially the 90s. Like, if we go for a full month, the crude oil futures could easily be up into the high 80s. Would be my expectation at least. So it'll go up another $10 or $20. So there's going to be a lot of pressure in the United States administration to figure out its insurance policy. Because remember, that was the main complaint from the Lloyd's of London guy over here. It's like, people don't necessarily know who to talk to. Here at Lloyd's, we have a lot of relationships and we can open things up as soon as we're ready. But right now, it's not looking so great, so we're going to back off. And the alternative, what, is the United States? They don't, it doesn't look like they have a plan, right? They say that they want to make this offer, and that's great, but how quickly can they actually implement this? And the answer has to be within the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, things are going to get screwed economically in a lot of the rest of the world as far as inflation goes. I mean, in Europe, it's already getting pretty bad if you just look at this chart here. Europeans are already paying more for their energy than during some of the worst winters here. It kind of boggles your mind, probably as a European, when you're paying higher energy costs in spring than you are in the winter. Like, you're expecting things to be seasonal and for those costs to start going down, not to almost triple. I mean, this is, for retail people, right? I mean, and it's not necessarily a tripling, but it's closer to like a 50%, almost a 50% increase. It's closer to like, what, a 40% increase. It's a big increase, okay? No one likes paying that much more money. No one likes paying more for bills, no. Especially when it's not even necessarily their fault or their country's fault. It's something larger going on in the world. Okay, and then... So, here's just a reminder why Lloyd's of London is concerned about insuring ships in that area. That's a cruise missile. That's a goddamn cruise missile. So, yeah. This is why Lloyd's of London does not want to insure ships going through the area because they don't want to accidentally get hit. And you can see they're on a container ship, and they're just like, hey. Oh my god. So that's kind of scary. That's pretty scary. I'm glad I'm not out there doing that job. Okay. Now we're gonna go back to my little pet theory here, that I keep hammering on. Putin made an announcement saying, hey, we are willing to use nearly all of our civilian personnel in the war if need be. 2.5 million people. President of the Russian Federation on establishing the staffing levels of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. In accordance with Article 4 of the federal law, I decree to establish the authorized strength of the armed forces of the Russian Federation at essentially 2.4 million units, including 1.5 million military personnel. And then to declare invalid the decree of the President of the Russian Federation from a while ago on establishing the staffing, this decree shall enter into force on the date of signing, which is today. This literally happened today. So if you're a citizen of Russia, you are you are very likely getting conscripted. Yeah, this is bad. This is really bad. So I made a post here. Looks like Putin is signaling that he's willing to go all in if the US decides to pivot to the European theater from the Middle East to help Ukraine. And it's not like that is an empty theory, right? I've gone over the last couple of days on this little pet theory, but now there's additional stuff coming from Zelensky over the last 48 hours here. We covered this part in yesterday's stream, but it plays into the next bit here. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine is ready to send drone defense specialists to protect Middle Eastern cities, if nations there help to get a ceasefire with Russia. And now, today, those negotiations are totally underway. So Zelensky made the offer, and people in the UAE and Qatar picked up the phone and said, yeah, we'll help you with the Russians. Sure. Send us the drones. Send us the drones. We'll help you with the Russians. This is a new alliance building that Zelensky is trying to do outside of just what he's been trying to do with Europe and the United States. Ukraine can contribute to protecting lives and stabilizing the situation. Partners are reaching out to us. I have tasked Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, together with intelligence agencies, the Minister of Defense, our military command, and the NSDC Secretary, to present options for assisting the relevant countries and to provide aid in a way that does not weaken our own defense here in Ukraine. And this little bit here is a little bit of important political maneuvering, because some EU officials are kind of upset about this shift of focus from Ukraine to the Middle East. And this is one lady here. It's a very rude comment at the top, but we can listen to what she has to say.
It's diverting attention away, and that's why today also we had this meeting that we can't let it slip off the table, because this is the real and very close threat to Europe. Of course, also what is worrying is that all these capabilities that are needed in the Middle East are also needed in Ukraine. So all the production we need to speed up, because there is more need, and we really need to deal with this. And also the attention away from the negotiations to actually
the trilateral
achieve
meeting.
peace. What is maybe
so the trilateral meeting actually got delayed. But holy shit, does this not vindicate Palmer Luckey? Holy shit, does this not vindicate Palmer Luckey? Every other day, I mean, this guy's been on a fantastic run Palmer Luckey has. He just opened his own bank recently. And now Palmer Luckey, he went on and on about saying, listen, I totally support the war in Ukraine. And then he'd pivot to the military-industrial complex in the United States saying, guys, we can't make it cost this exorbitant amount of money in order to build these cruise missiles, in order to build these drones, in order to protect our allies. The United States needs to be the world's gun shop, and we need to be able to have the manufacturing capabilities to produce everything that we need. Because we're now running into reports and rumors that, oh, is the US going to have enough missile capacity for deterrence and for attacking? Are the Ukrainians going to have enough to protect themselves if they also go in and send some of their equipment to the Middle East? This all totally vindicates Palmer Luckey's concerns and his efforts in building Anduril, and I hope Palmer gets more success a lot more quickly, because now the United States really needs an industrialist like Palmer to come to the fray and help sway these concerns. And that will even further solidify him kind of in the annals of great American industrialists. If he's able to help sway these concerns about, oh my God, Ukraine's running out of missiles. Does the United States have enough missiles? And then Palmer Luckey steps in and says, don't worry, guys. I got you. It'd just be great. It would be great. I'd love that, because I love Palmer, man. Palmer's great. I'm a big Palmer fan. So let's continue on. Let's see here. Oh yeah, the trilateral meeting with the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the United States was today officially delayed. Zelensky made an announcement saying, hey, we really want to have this meeting. We're willing to move to a different venue. And now we are helping with some Middle Eastern country, the defense of some Middle Eastern countries. But we still want to have this meeting with the Russians. And it's just a post from Zelensky again. When a head of state says something, you have to listen to what the head of state is saying. Whether or not you have very positive or negative feelings towards Zelensky, it doesn't matter. Or towards Trump in that matter. A lot of people don't like Trump. Doesn't matter what you feel. You have to pay attention to what they're saying, because what they're saying impacts markets in a hugely significant fashion. That is, so long they have a reputation. It kind of works the same way if you're not someone who's adequately following politicians enough, but you are following central banks, let's say, you just got into that. It's the same thing that financial analysts say about, the credibility of the ECB, the credibility of the BOJ, the credibility of the FOMC, the credibility of the BOE, the credibility of a central bank to follow up on its word to meet whatever mandate it wants to meet in order to tamper market expectations for inflation or its balance sheet or whatever. It's the same exact thing when it comes down to politicians. Politicians have essentially their own credit rating, right? Whether or not you can trust them well or not, right? So if the credibility of Zelensky is really high, you want to take what he says at face value and react off that. I mean, Trump has really high credibility in this regard, because as soon as he starts saying something, markets move. And that was what it was like during his first administration. If you were there, holy crap, that was not easy getting adjusted to that. I remember people actually doing quite well just trading off Trump tweets, making bots trading off Trump tweets. Oh, he said something good, buy. Oh, he said something bad, sell. And that was That was during Trump's first term. Now during the second term, if you were there during all the IEEPA tariffs being enacted during the first 2 months and the chaos that was, I mean, I did pretty well. I remember trading that in the trading group that I have. I was really on top of that. I had the squawk. I'd be playing a game on one monitor and have the squawk chat open on a second monitor, and then the squawk chat would go ding, 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 ding. Oh, there's something new, something Trump said. Oh shit, they're putting tariffs on Canada. Oh no, they're coming to a deal. They're taking tariffs off of Canada, and be going long dollar CAD, short dollar CAD, back and forth and back and forth, like 3 or 4 times over the span of like a week. It was quite hectic. Okay, it was quite hectic. And the Canadian election had just finished at that point. So everyone was just trying to figure out the credibility of Mark Carney. Will Mark Carney follow up on his word? How credible is Mark Carney when he makes his threats and whatnot compared to Trump, right? It's very important to stay up to date with the word of world leaders and their efficacy of actually following through on their word, right? Man, it's a great little rant there, right? Great little rant. And we're not going to watch the full 4 minutes here. Sorry, Vladimir. Sorry, Z. We're going to move on to talking a bit more about specific things going on the ground in Iran, because it is now starting to look a bit more likely that we're going to get some kind of boots on the ground situation, whether or not the United States actually is getting involved or they're getting the Kurds involved. So let me show you what I mean by that. So this is just a huge breakdown. It's a 4-minute breakdown going over all the different things happening with the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. We can skip this for now. This is the stuff on the Kurds. Kurdish paramilitary forces in Iraq have launched a ground military offense into Iran against the Islamic Republic, with thousands of Kurdish fighters beginning to take combat positions inside northwestern Iran on Friday, March the 2nd. A Kurdish official tells I-23 News. Now, this actually is contrary to what a Kurdish politician is saying. Kurdistan Region Deputy Prime Minister Kaban Talabani, is that actually how you say it? Talabani? Says the region will not be part of Iran's ongoing conflict with US and Israel. Quote, I will completely keep its neutrality. That the Kurds will. However, it doesn't seem like that, because there were reports that Trump was making phone calls to the Kurds and the Kurds were contemplating going in. And it's not just the Kurds. The Azerbaijani are also going in. Breaking, Azerbaijan begins amassing troops alongside the border of Iran. The Azerbaijani military has canceled most leaves for soldiers in its armed forces. The military has been placed on maximum alert. So now you have the Azerbaijani coming in from the north and the Kurds coming in from the east, or rather from the west. And for all we know, they could just take the tip of Iran for themselves and decide to split it. It can be pretty bad for the territorial integrity of Iran. So there might be some territory swapping here, depending on, frankly, what happens. It depends. If the Azerbaijani are also going to align with the Kurds in essentially being the ground troops for the United States, that would be rather interesting. Okay, no US troops on the ground. But now how do you make sure that these groups, when they do have boots on the ground, don't interfere in the transitory Iranian government? So now we're getting into a big puddle of what ifs, and it becomes a lot more difficult to figure out what the outcome is exactly going to be unless we get a clear report from these governments and most likely from the United States, about what the purpose of these militaries going into Iran will be. What is their end goal? And are those goals in line with the US and Israeli operations? So now we have this question up in the air about what are the motives behind these guys, and how much are they in line with the US and Israel on that front. Okay, and then, oh, this one's interesting. Wikipedia has updated that Iran has no longer has a navy. 0, no, they have no submarines, no frigates, no corvettes. They have no ships, no navy. Done, gone, zip, nada, zilch. This is how they get sunk. This is how the US has been sinking all the ships. This is a demo of the same missiles used to blow up the Iranian ships. These things are fucking insane. This just blows the ship right in half. Holy shit. Yeah, apparently a few hundred Iranians have been killed in these torpedo attacks on the Iranian Navy. And that CNN post actually has a bit talking about how the United States has been, yeah, right here.
And I'm going to try to pull this out here so people can see. This is a map of all of Asia. This is where Iran is right now. We just learned that the United States sunk an Iranian vessel in the Indian Ocean, we believe off the coast of Sri Lanka. That's pretty far away.
They're just getting them all, no matter where they are.
Sense of how widespread this is now. So when we do step back, what is it that you see?
I think, John, step back is right. So day 5, so much going on. I kind of like to bring it back to fundamentals. And I've talked about...
Okay, so this is CNN's global affairs analyst.
Karl von Clausewitz, the great military theorist. And he wrote a book called On War. And he said, war is a contest of wills.
Continuation of politics
contest
by
of
other
wills.
means.
And we talked yesterday, why is Iran is trying to just unleash mayhem on markets, on oil, and trying to convince the Gulf states to put pressure on Washington, as we've talked about before, to win that contest of wills, so that President Trump says, okay, enough, let's call this quits. I don't think it...
That's exactly the opposite of what these Middle Eastern countries have been saying officially. All the leaders, I've been following their foreign affairs X profiles and the profiles of all the leaders that I can find, from Syria to the UAE to Saudi Arabia to Qatar, all of Pakistan, all these guys are like, US, go on in, keep bombing them, keep blowing them up. We don't want any more of these missiles. Keep attacking them so then they don't have any more missiles. Until the missile strikes stop, keep fucking bombing them, United States. That's what these guys are saying. So I 100% disagree with what this analyst is saying. Oh, United States, can you please leave Iran alone right now? That's exactly the opposite of what they're saying. Yeah. This is, that guy gets paid to do that job. Gets paid to say that. Alrighty. So that is that, and we're gonna close all of those. We can go here and we can take a nice big deep breath. We're now done with all the news. No more news. No more news. We can just look at our charts, go over a couple of things. So if you guys want me to look at a couple of charts now, it'd be a good time. I'm gonna pull up the DXY here. And it still seems to be going down. Nothing crazy. It's down on the day. Had that big top wick the other day. So no super crazy changes. But when I look at this chart now, and because I'm editing these older videos that I've been doing over the last few days, and I'm like, hey, I was right on the money when I said we're probably going to go up into the 99 handle on the announcement that the United States is going in. And that's exactly what's happened. And now I'm expecting a fade based on the condition that the United States essentially gets what they want. And that the oil markets can open up in the next 2 weeks, right? We have that. We pretty much have a 2-week window here before oil markets, when shit really hits the fan with oil markets. That's going to create a problem over here, for sure. We're probably going to see positive drift on that front until we get some kind of confirmation that the United States is able to properly insure and defend ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. And then once the United States starts doing it, at that point, Lloyd's of London will probably follow through after a few days and reinsure people, and maybe not necessarily get rid of their labeling of that whole area around the Gulf, saying that it's effectively an active war zone, but at least allowing people to get their insurance. So it really depends on the United States getting insurance at the people pretty much immediately in order for this not to start trading in the upper half of the 80 handle here. That'll be a problem. That'll be a problem, not just for the United States, but for China and for Europe, for the rest of the world. Higher energy prices mean higher consumer inflation globally. It'll be bad. So we don't want that to happen. But in order for that to happen, we need insurance to actually be paid, and for these bombings by the United States to continue disabling the capabilities of the Islamic Republic from being able to send drones, missiles at oil infrastructure and at these ships and at other Middle Eastern countries. So we got 2 weeks to get this economic situation under control. That's kind of the timeline before shit really hits the fan. NQ, I gotcha. NASDAQ is doing so far so good, at least on the day. Nothing. I don't see anything crazy going on here. Nice moves higher. I am on the more curious side though. Let's go ahead and slap on these ranges. And over here, yesterday. Yeah. Huge tail move. Huge. And then over here. Also, a fat tail move. Yeah. During geopolitical events, it is hard as hell to use most indicators. You pretty much have to trade the news. And that's at least what I've done with Eurodollar. And Eurodollar has been doing a-okay. Definitely not the best trading FX pair, but it's doing okay. And on the announcement that natural gas prices are going to be able to come back down, especially if Qatar is able to come back online sooner than the month shutdown that they announced, then Euro will completely recover. But there actually is a risk of this thing going lower again in that 2-week period. Things might effectively be sideways or heavily reactionary to any further announcements that Iranian oil capabilities are disabled or Iranian strikes have attacked other country oil capabilities. That would impact this asset and make the US dollar stronger. Yeah. S&P also doing just fine. Nothing terribly crazy here. Nothing terribly crazy here. And then we can go to, actually let's go back to NQ real quick. looking like one volatile asset. You don't usually go all the way up and then all the way back down and then all the way back up to a new high. This is going to stay volatile for quite a bit here. This isn't going to be the most fun asset to trade. So you could easily see more downside. That's for sure. You could easily see more upside. You have to have the squawk open. The main driver of assets right now is new developments. Things that I've just mentioned, like oil capabilities in other countries or natural gas capabilities in countries, getting taken offline. But at the same time, in a few days, if the Islamic Republic actually surrenders or there's a ground invasion into the Islamic Republic, then guess what? The Islamic Republic is going to focus more on the ground invasion than they will on all the tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz. They'll focus their missile fire on the ground invasion rather than on the infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, the oil energy, gas infrastructure that's around them. So it's important to just keep in mind things are going to can change quite rapidly, and any expectation can immediately get flipped on its head or magnified 2 to 3 times, which is why I am emphasizing stay on the squawk, stay on a newsfeed, stay up to date on stuff. I can pull up in Discord over here. What we do is we have a Financial Juice newsfeed directly built into the server. So you can see here around, I'll actually move it over here so it's a little easier to see and zoom in a little bit. Iran strikes will intensify and expand in the coming days. Now News citing a statement by the Revolutionary Guard. And that was an hour before the stream started. Now I can go ahead and send this to the Follows the Islamic Republic thread. And that has all the latest stuff. It even has that song I played at the very beginning of the stream. And then Iranians sent messages to the U.S. over the last few days, but the U.S. didn't respond, says Axios. Let's see here. A drone attack targeting the Iranian Kurdish opposition camp in Iraqi Kurdistan. Okay, so the Kurds and the Iranians are pretty much in open conflict now. They're fighting now. They're fighting. Thousands of Iraqi Kurds launched a ground offensive in Iran, citing a U.S. official. Okay, so it's happening. The Kurds are going in. The Kurds are officially going into Iran now. They went in like an hour or two ago. The United States votes 53 to 47 to block resolution that would prevent further Iran strikes. Oh, so the War Powers Act was officially blocked. So Trump no longer needs to forcefully withdraw his troops after 90 days. So, everything's fine on that front. War Powers Act is A-okay now. At least that's how I'm reading that sentence. United States Senate votes 53 to 47 to block resolution. That would have prevented further Iran strikes. Yeah, so it's definitely an affirmative. Trump doesn't necessarily have carte blanche, but now he doesn't have to forcefully withdraw from the Iranian operations that they have going. Reporters in 3 border provinces deny reports of armed Kurdish militants crossing into Iran from Iraq. Now that's Iranian news, so we'll have to see. I don't know. I'd rather trust the U.S. military official that was on Fox than just the Iranians at this point. Yeah. Iran will target Israel nuclear site if Israel and the U.S. seek regime change, says Iranian military officer. Okay. Iraqi security forces seize a mobile rocket launch platform near Basra alongside 2 missiles ready to fire at neighboring countries. Jesus. And the rest of the Middle East is completely on board with getting rid of these missiles. And once all these missiles are removed, then the process of creating the transitory Iranian government will proceed. But right now, essentially the entire Middle East is in alliance against Iran with the United States and Israel. And now the Kurds also going in. No, we just want to get rid of the Islamic Republic at this point. And once they've at least been defanged by all their missiles being removed, then the transitory government can be set up, and then the U.S. forces can pivot either to Cuba or to Russia. We'll see. And now I can move this guy back to the other monitor. Okay. Any other assets to check out here? We can probably look at pivot related stuff now. See how well the pivot points are holding up here. How well are the seasonal odds holding up? Not so bad, actually. Not so bad. If NASDAQ were to go higher based off seasonal data, how much higher could it go? It looks like the odds are pretty strong for at least going up between... Gotta skip through any audio bits on this track. It's just too distracting. Let's see here. Between... Oh. There we go. So between R 1.5 and R 0.5, about 57% of the time, the top for the week comes in between those two pivots for this particular week, the first week of March. So those are pretty good odds, in my opinion, of at least going above maybe 50, 25, 300. So I'd at least expect to go above 25, 300. So we can go ahead and add a nice little trend line. I don't know, let's make it solid, a little thinner, make it green, and timestamp it. 2826 0304, right? 1506. And then we're going to make sure that the coordinates are correct. Cool. And we can set up an alert. And we can also fix the text from looking so funky. There we go. So there we go. We got a timestamp now set up. That's pretty close to the current price. Don't get me wrong. But this is being set up as the threshold for, hey, there's an alert. Maybe it's time to get out of longs over here for the week. That would be a way of interpreting this indicator. Okay. Well, I don't have too much more to go over as far as specific assets. I mean, there is gold, right? I don't want to try and drag the stream out by going over one asset over another. But hey, look, the top for the week is very likely in. And how about the low? Does this low show up anywhere near the odds? Well, it's, yeah, right there at the edge of the distribution. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was the top and this was the bottom for the week, because these are both pretty extreme sides. You usually, oh my God, like based off pivots, anyone who trades pivots knows this. You just went all the way up past R2 and then all the way down past S2. This is a volatile price movement relative to this set of pivots. And now, guess what? You're getting expanded pivots in the next set. See how big this next set of pivots is? So these are the pivot points for next week. And this is what we use for trade planning over the weekend to set targets of where to get in, where to get out based on the seasonal data, that is. And we call this set on the right the expanded pivots. And this is an expanded pivot condition because it completely encompasses the entire set, pivot point set of the current week. And you can call this an expanded set as well because it completely encompasses the prior set of pivot points from the prior week as well. We can look at the month for gold. And let's see here. Well, if gold is going to move lower, pretty big odds it goes below 4,800. Pretty big odds if it's going to actually make a new low or maybe some kind of equivalent low. The probability way to pivot is at 4,650. And then if we look at the high odds for gold, see where it could go if we end up going higher. Oh, wow. These are pretty flat odds here. Pretty flat odds. And when I say flat, I mean fairly uniform. I mean, don't get me wrong. It still tails out over here past R2. But when the odds from one bin to the next is very, very similar, you run the risk of just very easily sliding up and down between guessing where the top for a particular pivot set can be for a particular month or a week. I don't like these uniform looking histograms. I like something like this, which is next month's odds, where you have a very clear peak and then it tails off. This is very easy to say, oh, okay, most of the time the top is coming in between central pivot R1.5, with most of those tops coming in 39% of the time between central pivot and R0.5. And then this probability weighted pivot is just taking into account all of the possible scenarios and giving you the weighted average of all those scenarios. Okay. So I've gone ahead and covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. And I'll go ahead and say thank you guys very much for watching. I'll be hanging out in the Discord. I am so excited because I'm getting ready to release a project I've been working on for, I think, close to the last 3 or 4 months. It's that rolling window library. I'm finally getting ready to actually release it. I'm just doing my last walkthroughs. I'm doing my last covers to make sure every single little bit of it is good. And I will very likely actually post a video here on this channel about it, going over some programming of how to use it and what. It'll be very, very nice to actually have that project done, because that means I can implement it in all my indicators, because that algorithm, that library, has code that I use in all of my indicators, the open source ones and my premium ones. So once that's out, and it's like 6,000 lines, and a lot of that is documentation. But once that's out, I'll start working on other projects, on other indicators, taking feature requests and whatnot. I really look forward to just getting back to actually building actual indicators. But this code was so essential to get done and get done correct. And then once I realized, oh, I'm going to be releasing it publicly to everyone, I have to make it look pretty, and I have to make it well documented, and I have to cover all the edge cases. Building a library is a much higher standard. I have a much higher standard when programming and building a library for public use than I would necessarily for my own code that I know I'm going to read and that I self-document for myself. So I really look forward to getting this done. It's been a lot of work. So again, I will see you guys over in the Discord. If you guys want to hang out or whatnot, say hi, go ahead. So thank you guys again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Nice little catch up. Looking forward to seeing how things progress on that Eurodollar trade, and I will see you guys